Welcome to Boutiques Connect Update with me, Joanne Bainham. Today I'm joined by Jonathan Rickerson, Head Dealer at Currency Partners. Welcome.
Thanks, Joanne.
You are a very brave man. You're going to talk to me about the South African Rand, okay? What has the Rand done recently and what's been driving it?
We typically used to lots of excitement and interesting happenings with the Rand, but the past 12 months, to be honest, has been quite dull in the sense that we've really been at the whim of the US dollar. So the story has been everyone watching economic data coming out of the States and trying to understand where the Fed is going in terms of their rate cutting cycle and when that's going to start. So whenever you get news that is positive for the dollar, perhaps inflation is fairly strong, anything that indicates that those yields are going to stay higher for longer, you've tended to see the dollar go stronger. And of course, that means the Rand has sold off in response. So every time we've been expecting a trend to continue, we've not seen that. So you'll have inflation come at strong 1 month, following month we'll have employment data that disappoints. So it's been bouncing between this range over the past 12 months, between 1820 and 1920. So for the Rand, fairly well behaved actually. The one thing obviously that's changed over the past few weeks has been people positioning for the elections. So heading into the elections, we saw a lot of concern about what a worst case outcome could look like. So would that be an ANC, EFF or MK coalition? And of course, investors have to take a little bit of risk off of the table in that scenario. We've obviously seen that now come and go. And as things appear to be playing out over the past few days, it's going to be resolved in a far more market-friendly manner. The ANC and the DA having positive talks. Tomorrow we'll hopefully finally get a little bit more clarity on that. And that's seen the Rand come back towards the better end of that range that we've seen. So trading around about 1835 this morning and hopefully on track to strengthen over the coming months.
Okay, so when you're talking about strengthening over the next couple of months, what kind of forecast do you have for the currency? Where do you think it could potentially move to?
A good question, and again, it comes back to what are the drivers. So on the one hand, as risk dissipates from the market, and we see hopefully the DA and the ANC playing nicely together in the coming weeks and months, that alone would be enough for the Rand to trend back towards that pre-election 18 Rand level. But on top of that, one of the important things is that we're seeing data coming out of the States that is starting to indicate that that Fed cut will, of course, be happening at some point in the rest of this year. They did indicate last night it may only be one cut. But I think what's clear is that the dollar is potentially poised for a little bit of a tough time over the coming 12 to 18 months. If we can see the dollar go back to the sort of levels we saw December, which is about 5% weaker than where it's trading now, you can do the maths. 5% of 18 gives you about 90 cents on the Rand dollar exchange rate alone. It's a simplistic way of looking at it, but that pushes you back into the mid to low 17s. So certainly that's something that we're hoping to see in the coming 12 months.
Well, it'll be very good for investor sentiment in South Africa if we get to those levels. But as you rightfully point out, it's not just the Rand alone. It's very much a cross against something else.
Correct.
And so what's the dollar doing? Clients will obviously come to you and say, look, I want to take my money offshore for various reasons. Talk to me about the behavioral psychology about when they buy and sell currencies, and how do you help in that regard?
So clients will come to us, and I think very often what happens is they think that they're in a position and they've made up their mind and they're ready to transact. And then what will happen is we will chat to a client and we'll say, okay, you're in a position, you're now got an account ready and we can assist you sending your money offshore. Are you ready to go ahead? And the client will ask us what we've seen, what we think. We'll give them similar to what we've been chatting about now. And at the end of the conversation, the client maybe will say, okay, I'd like the rate to be 18. And we're trading at perhaps 18.50. And you'll say to the client, why 18? And the client will say to you, well, when I started this process, we were at 18. So we refer to that as anchoring. Essentially, the client has a figure in mind that doesn't necessarily have any particular value or reason for existing, but they are anchored to that kind of level. Similarly, clients love round numbers. So tell a client that they can get the exchange rate at 18.07, the client's going to want 18. That's similar to the R9.99 for a loaf of bread, but it's not 10 Rand. So again, those are the kind of things that we try and guide clients through so that when they come to us, they're in a position to understand what biases they have that don't actually make any sense in terms of the investment decision that they're making. Obviously, fear and greed, as we all know in all spheres of financial markets, fear and greed is a challenge. You can see the rand go from 20 down to 18.50, but then you'll have clients who are wanting that last 20 cents. Similarly, clients are very comfortable when things are lovely, and then a politician says something stupid and we shoot out to 20, and then suddenly now it's the last opportunity ever to buy dollars below 20 again, and sure enough, a few months later we're back down to where we were. So these are the common biases that we see all the time, and really our job at Currency Partners is to just bring clients back into the present, understand where they are now, accept that there's value in the certainty of knowing what you're doing now. Trust me, we see clients looking to move 100, 200 million rand. They watch this rate every day. Once it's done, they say to us, oh, I'm so happy that's done. Or this is so stressful. We try and take that out of their hands.
And do you have conversations with clients as to why they're taking the money offshore and what they plan to do with it once it sits offshore? Because it has a massive bearing on the rate that they take the money out at.
100%. So the easiest client to have a strategy for is someone who's purchasing a property. Now, very simple. You perhaps bringing funds into the country, or you taking them out. Either way, for most clients, the extremely wealthy don't have this problem, but for most clients, you've budgeted either in rands or in hard currency, and you now know what you can afford. Your decision is made for you. As long as it's still affordable at the time, then you must go. Don't have the fear that you're going to pull the trigger and you could have gotten better in the future, because right now you've got an obligation you need to fund. So when it comes to an investment, for example, which is a far more discretionary sort of decision that a client can make, there obviously one needs to look at what the asset is doing in hard currency. So an asset that has underperformed significantly in hard currency, that may still be attractive even though the rand itself is weaker. So again, it's framing these decisions to a client and letting them understand the purpose. And of course, clients who have emigrated. The minute a client has emigrated and they are now paying pounds, paying Aussie dollars, paying US dollars to live for their expenses, for their kids' future, there's very little need to have a mismatch and have your exposure and most of your wealth sitting in rands. In that situation, once again, you may get a better opportunity in future, but the key to me is to start matching that as soon as you can. So don't worry about the few cents that you might be paying up or not paying up. So these are the kind of conversations we have with our clients day in, day out.
I'm curious now, because you talk about clients who've immigrated and they're probably beneficiaries of trust and they want to get their money out of the country for whatever reasons. If you look at your book of business on a day-to-day basis, how much of the money that's leaving South Africa, we can talk about what's coming in at a later stage, but what's leaving, is that for people who've immigrated and they want to get their money out? And how much of that's people living here who just want to get money out? So do you have a feel for how much of it's locals putting money offshore versus offshore people taking money from here?
Sure. A good question. Obviously, we've been around for about 10 years. We are the biggest private client forex provider forex intermediary in the country. So obviously the dynamic of our book itself changes as we grow and develop and put our focus in different places. The wealth space, so purely that investment remittances, that has been a big driver this year. But I will say that the book of clients who are immigrating, that is a consistent flow. That is something that is just a fact of life in this country. We do continue to see it. Of course, it's great for business, but sad for the country, I think. One thing that we did see before the election, a few of our really high net worth clients who are actually wealthy in foreign currency as opposed to just rand billionaires. They, I think, ahead of this election were being quite prudent, and they were taking funds offshore to make sure that they actually maintained the offshore wealth and that hard currency. They do not want 20, 30, 40 years of hard work going down the tubes by a disastrous outcome that we've seemed to have avoided. So we did see some significant capital flows in the weeks leading up to the election.
And then on a positive note to end this discussion, I'm talking to a lot of people whose children live overseas and saying, quite a few of them are now talking about wanting to come back to South Africa. Not forever, but they're saying that schooling here is so cheap, housing is relatively cheap. Are you seeing flows come in the other direction? Because you talked earlier about buying property overseas. Are you seeing offshore people wanting to buy property in South Africa? Is that a flow you're seeing?
That's an excellent question. Bad news for anyone who's still looking to buy property in South Africa is that the foreigners still love bringing money into the country and buying our properties. We see that that is a never-ending flow, which is great. And as you say, it is certainly a positive thing. Our book we've got a deal potentially coming up in the next few weeks where clients are buying properties, you know, those silly number properties, and they're still making the commitment, putting the money, you know, into. Look, it's largely concentrated in Cape Town. We can't get away from that. Cape Town, Atlantic Seaboard, Franschhoek, the Islands, that's where it's happening. But yeah, a client who's making the move from overseas with his family and, you know, happy to be making the investment, not particularly worried. It's
yeah, but I'm hearing there that people have their passports already lined up. So they've got their British passport now, they've got the European passport, so they don't mind coming out of South Africa taking a flutter, so to speak, and then because they can always leave if they have to. Is that something you're seeing?
I think the commitments that our clients are making are not simply little flutters.
But large purchase. My point is, they're not scared to put money into this country because they have a plan B vis-a-vis another passport. Is that
Correct.
something you're seeing?
I think so, but I don't think that's the flow. I think the clients we're seeing, I think these are foreigners who just have fallen in love with.
Oh,
this
so they're not
country over the
locals
years.
who've got offshore passports. They're actual foreigners.
Foreigners
who want
bringing
to
money
back.
Yeah.
And do you assist them with the whole sort of forex issues around that they can take their money back again, so they're not captive capital here should they want to sell?
Absolutely.
You know, because locals have different rules around taking money offshore.
Absolutely.
Do you assist with that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So obviously our existing clients, they obviously benefit from being forewarned and having us help them with that. What we do sometimes see is the exact thing you're talking about, where funds were introduced 30 years ago. They no longer have any proof of well, it's difficult to find the proof of introducing those funds into the country, because that's the key, is if you've brought those funds in from abroad, you need to show that introduction to be able to get the approval to
Take it out
easily
again.
send it out again. So of course that's one of the key things that we stress to all of our foreign buyers.
Yeah, make sure the paperwork's in place should you want to take the money out.
Absolutely. But I also do think, clients are quite, I shouldn't say clients, I think investors typically are concerned about our exchange control regulations, but the truth of the matter is that as long as you're able to provide the documentation required and follow the procedures, it's all doable. And certainly at the moment, there's no stress about your capital becoming entrenched or locked or inaccessible down the line.
But Currency Partners helps in that regard.
That's
So
right.
that's part of the service offering. Not only are you helping people's psychology around taking money out of the country, but you're also helping with foreigners.
Correct.
Making sure they can get their money out again should they need to.
The foreigners can be very nervous bringing funds into the country. We put them at ease. It's something that we've got a massive business development team. They're on WhatsApp with their clients all day long, including weekends from what I can see. So yeah, we're there to help.
Jonathan, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.